Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our art talk with artist Carla Hardin. This is a series of talks that we've been doing this semester that feature alumni, and it is part of our centennial celebration, so we're glad that you all could join us today. Carla is an alumni of the Mott's Art and Design program here. She went on to CCS in Detroit, the College for Creative Studies, to get a degree in illustration. And we are very excited to talk about her art, her artistry, kind of the thought process that goes into what she does. So thank you for joining us today, Carla.
Thanks for having me.
This is very exciting. It's good to have people come home again. So thank you. So why don't you start off and tell us a little bit more, expanded about you, how you got into art, why you decided that's what you wanted to kind of pursue as a career.
Absolutely. So I started art at a very young age of 4 years old. I had a knack of not being able to kind of communicate everything as well as others. So I would use images instead to kind of communicate what I wanted to say or what I was feeling at the time. It got to the point that I started drawing on the walls of my house, and my mom wasn't too happy about it until she realized I was actually very good at it. And she decided to allow me to draw on the walls in my room. So it became my own personal little gallery for many years, and many times there would be several pieces that would be removed, added back on, so on and so forth.
That's causing me a lot of stress as a parent and a homeowner right now, so thank you. Thank you, but I appreciate that. That's some good support from families.
Yeah. But from that point on, I then wanted to pursue being an artist and what it takes to be one. And so I went to Mott Community College. I went to CCS, and then I became the freelance artist, but I still always enjoy coming back to Mott, though.
Well, so talk a little bit about your experience. I mean, Mott was your first college experience,
Yes.
right? That kind of led you. I mean, it's a 2-year program meant to transfer you on. So what was that like? And
so when I first got here, it was a lot. I was a little bit nervous at first because there were a lot of things I didn't know about. Like, for example, the 2D design class. I had never in my life done that at my school. But when I got it, I realized that it was something well needed. It started helping me to really work on shapes and creating images with just shapes. Then, of course, I had you as a teacher who got me into digital work, which I greatly appreciate because I didn't know anything about it. And then, of course, I had Mr. Watkins who kind of helped me with figure drawing, shading, how to really figure out what I wanted to focus on as my subject matter.
excellent.
Overall, I loved it.
Well, good. And then you left us.
Yes.
And you went to CCS.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a totally different kind of experience, I would think, right?
Absolutely.
So what were, talk to us about, maybe some of the challenges of the difference in environment, maybe the expectations, things that were, you cherished about it.
What I cherished most was the networking. The thing about Mott that I appreciated was that you guys immediately allowed me to call you Jim or Eddie or Mr. Watkins. Of course, I was still, respectful.
Still respectful.
But
yeah.
when I got to CCS, it was no longer about being a professor. This was basically a comrade in the arts. They taught me to speak to each one of them as Dave Chow. That was one of my teachers who really pushed that idea of we're no longer professor and student. It's now I am an artist just like you in this business. And that was one big thing CCS really pushed was the networking and the business aspect and really starting to push what you really wanted to be and focusing deeply on it and making sure you had the business tactics and also the networking ability because they would throw you into the actual world and you would actually have projects that were real life. You would have clientele. You would have to have your portfolios, your thumbnails. And they would walk you through it, but they would be right there standing by in case you needed something. So I appreciated that both from CCS and, of course, from my
Yeah, it was
colleagues.
nice having that constant support. So even though you're thrown into these situations, you know that there's somebody right there in case you
Exactly.
stumble, right?
Exactly.
So talk about the academic rigor of going to that school.
It was intense. You really had to work day and night at your craft. You had to know what you were doing. If you didn't know at first, you had at least a couple years to get yourself together. But by senior year, the last thing you were doing was a big, huge show that was focused on you and showing everything that you had to know. It was competitive too. You got to meet different artists, some similar to you, and you guys would push each other. And I think that was one big thing I enjoyed, because I enjoyed competition and I like to learn from my competitors, and we had the opportunity to talk to one another and explain what we were doing.
That's great. So you've done your studies, you graduate,
Yep.
and then what?
Then it was going to exhibitions, showing my work. There was a moment where I kind of took a step back from shows and things like that to really focus on my personal craft, because I still wasn't too sure. I had all the skill sets and the techniques, and of course I had the illustration background, but now it was the work of figuring out what I wanted to represent or who I wanted to be as an artist in the business. And from there, that was when I started developing, focusing on faces, focusing on colors, because I loved colors, but I also wanted to talk about something. I wanted to have something I wanted to say to everyone, that I wanted people to know about me or to know about what I thought. And that kind of gave me my personal little headspace here. And then I started to have clienteles. I had clients I had some celebrities who actually wanted some of my work. It was a experience I was not expecting, but then I also got mentors who are international artists who also kind of furthered my craft.
I want to get back to the headspace in a minute, but you talking about clients and being an illustrator, right? So a different kind of mindset than being an exhibiting artist in some ways, where you're working with a client, you're trying to come up with some solution to whatever they've asked you to do, whether it be a likeness that they want done, or maybe it's something very specific. So talk a little bit about being a professional illustrator, and like, how were these clients finding you? So if you're talking like a celebrity wanted something, what were you doing to make sure that got you seen?
So how I got seen by celebrities was actually I was collaborating with other artists, specifically a hat company, Steph and Ty in Detroit. They were the ones who came to me, and I actually had done a internship with them. And once I was done with the internship, they came back around and said, hey, we got some hats. Can you customize them? I customized those hats, and then they took them and they would show them all over the world. And these were their clients who got interested in the hats that I had customized. And they would call me up saying, oh, by the way, Jack Black likes your stuff. I was like, huh? And that was how I kind of got in touch with celebrities there. Illustration, though, with now facing a client and the client coming to me asking for illustrations, I definitely had my thumbnails, had to get those ready. I had to sit there and really listen to what the client wanted. And sometimes I would have to learn to pull myself back if I wanted to do something that wasn't what the client wanted. So that was actually a pretty good challenge for me. And also deadlines, learning about deadlines very quickly, how very much they are much needed, but they're great because now I use deadlines for my own self. I'll give myself a deadline to get something done for either a next exhibition, a show, any of that. So it was actually pretty nice to have those.
Yeah, was that a hard transition for you to really understand the importance of that deadline?
At first it was, but then I remembered you, and when we would have classes, how you were very direct when it came down to deadlines and how important they were, because not meeting a deadline was stalling up something else that had to get done within a certain time frame. So it was easy, but it was now using it in real life. I no longer was sitting in a classroom.
It wasn't just somebody telling you, like, yeah, whatever.
Exactly. And nope, this time it was, no, you got to get this done, for this client had something else happening or had something else to prepare for.
So working on anything special right now for any clients?
Right now, I actually don't have anything for any clients yet, but I am getting ready for the Flint Art Show that is going to be happening. The art fair.
Oh, the art fair.
Yeah.
All right. Oh.
So I might be there shopping, and hopefully everyone come and see me, and I'll probably have some more pieces coming down the line there.
Oh, excellent. All right. So let's talk about your exhibition.
Yes.
So Headspace. So a number of portraits are hanging on the wall that you have. You talk about Headspace. You just talked about, like, you had things you wanted to say with your work. So do you want to kind of walk us through maybe this and then some of those things that you're trying to say to the viewer?
Absolutely. So this exhibition, Headspace, is very much focused on my personality. It's really focused on my thoughts, personality, and sometimes even things that I like to talk about. Music, if you haven't noticed, is very, very important to me. There are some very well-known artists here. I am like Prince or Marvin or Maurice White for some, and also when it comes down to like certain pieces, they are actual headspaces of my own. They're actual thoughts that I had. Specifically ones that have music pieces or instruments, those are actually me listening to those sounds. Any of those, the pianos, the drums, I would listen to them. Or I'd hear a song and they would kind of help me to create the piece.
What made music such an important part of you? Like, I mean, not that that's not, I mean, music is very inspirational, right? But this is a huge focus in here. So why is that in your headspace?
Music was the only way sometimes I felt was the best communication. I could go to anybody of any type of culture, religion, anything, and we could immediately say, "Oh, do you know this song? Or do you know this tune?" And immediately we would just start to have a full conversation. And for me, being someone who had that difficulty of not being able to talk, I could always rely on, "Hey, do you like this song? Or do you like this music?" Or they would tell me about their culture and they tell me their instruments or things that would create a memory for them with certain sounds. And I could also relate. So I think music was just very communicative to me. It was a great communication for me.
So why are we seeing the specific artists we see in here?
Ooh, the Chadwick?
Yeah, well, you've got Chadwick. You've talked about having the Prince piece, Marvin. So, like, why?
Now, Chadwick, because he was an actor, but he was an actor who was playing certain roles that have now really stuck very hard to me. When I first heard about his passing, I had this need. It wasn't a want. It was a need to paint him because he had been going through something that nobody even knew about. This person would go in front of us, give us a show, give his all, and we had no clue he was going through things behind the scenes. And that's why I wanted to paint him, because a lot of times many of us are going through things and we don't know what's happening. But he showed the brightest part of him that nobody would even think that he was going through something. And that was why I wanted to paint him, because I was feeling the same way. There were things that were going on in my world that I might not have been able to show, but I always put my best foot forward. And it was a wonderful experience to see that somebody else was going through that too.
So talk us a little bit about some of the other pieces. I know that you kind of have this range of of pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got like these musical influences. We have like a Clarissa Shield piece, a Flint Kid.
Yes.
Yep. So that it's on the wall. And then you have like these deeply personal pieces, like a family portrait kind of going on of mom and dad, right? So there's all these kind of things. So kind of walk us through a little bit about some of these other pieces.
Sure. So Flint Kid specifically, that one is all about community. I'm a Flint kid. I love Flint. It has given me a lot. It has taught me how to be strong, how to speak up for myself, and not be afraid to go for what I want. And Clarissa was a wonderful, how should I say, wonderful hero in a way to those who had that moment where they're like, oh, I'm just a Flint kid. Or, oh, I can't do much because I'm from Flint. No, you're way much more stronger than that. And so she was that show of strength for me. And so I wanted to paint that to show people that you can be just as strong no matter where you come from. Now, of course, the personal piece of my mom and dad, they are the start of who I am today. I would not be standing here. I would not be the personality that you all know without them. They are the ones who embedded in the music, the thoughts of community, and of course, the spirituality of like praying and reading the Bible, knowing who you are as a person, and guiding me through my steps in my life. I could not be anybody else without them. And then, of course, my nature pieces, that comes specifically from my mother, because she is a nature person just like me. And she would always say, why don't you paint nature? And I had a really hard time for a long time doing that until finally I said, I need to. I need to try. And I created these nature pieces that some of you guys will see in here because of the fact they are my representation of peace. Whenever I need to walk away from something or I need to have a moment with myself, I find nature.
It's your centering kind of moment?
It's a center moment.
That's awesome. So, the piece behind you, dead center, one of the largest pieces in the exhibition. It's a very powerful piece to look at. So, would you like to share some insights about what inspired you for this piece, what it was that you really felt you needed to say with it?
So, this piece comes from years ago, when I was, I think, a high school student, actually. And this piece was with Mr. Watkins. He gave me a challenge of drawing on cardboard. And there was a student who took the photo, and I got to choose what it was. And I chose myself with a big old afro in my regular high school gear, looking forward with aggression. And this represented my future. It was my America. It was my thoughts. That's the name of it, is My America. This piece is always looking towards the future. She's not going to back down from whatever's about to happen. She's going to face it head on. And some things might be black and white and might be a little bit not the funnest thing in the world, but this is my history. This is what I'm going to be bringing in, and look out, is really what it says.
Some of that Flint Kid coming back in there. It's interesting because, you have the flag in this piece. You have the flag in that piece as well. Yes. So it's about that strength, and that's wonderful. So as you are kind of thinking about works that you are creating, maybe future things that you're working on right now, what kind of things are you hoping to say in those pieces?
What I'm hoping to say is write your own history. Think about your own personal thoughts. The world is going to give you a whole bunch of thoughts that they want you to think. But you need to find a place where you can have your own thoughts, your own opinions, and be able to express them. Be you. I know it's hard, it's easier said than done. And you're going to have a lot of thoughts in your head. find a way to make them all in harmony with what you want to be and who you want to represent.
How do you balance that with being an illustrator?
Brainstorming. Brainstorming everything out. If you have a random thought, write it down. Write down, because that random thought might be your next piece. Listen to when people are talking to you, because again, speaking to someone can just as easily be another art piece coming down the road, and you have no idea. Certain words. Also, I would say balancing it with taking time for yourself. Stepping back from your art if you need to. Look, it's okay. I know it's hard for us to say, step away. Step away if you need to. Don't force it.
Find peace.
Find peace. You have to find your own center of peace. If you don't, your art will suffer for it. But if you find it, your art is going to grow so much when you finally come back to it.
So tell me about some of the biggest challenges you feel like you're facing right now in your artistry. Okay?
The biggest challenge I find is being able to sometimes stand firm in my my value, because I am always wanting to help people. I'm always wanting to show my art, give it out. But the problem is I'm an artist, and this is something I want to live off of. So I have to get to the point where I have to be like, no, this is my value, and I can't back down from it. I gotta let you guys know how much I am or who I am, because each one of these pieces represent me, and I also represent this skill set that I have. So I need to be very firm with it. And also sometimes finding other artists. Not saying that it's hard to be with them, but finding that group of artists where we can all collaborate and talk. Because some of us might be completely different, or we might have different skill sets.
Do you feel that that last thing is more difficult now that you are outside of school? You don't have that cohort of like-minded people, and it's so that finding that connection is more difficult. Is that what you think the reason is, or is there something else?
That is the main reason for me. Is it's hard. It's wonderful when you have that group of people. When I was at my community college or I was at CCS, we were all in a big, huge building. I could easily go and talk to several different artists, but when you're out in the world, it is a lot different, because now you don't have that group. So now you can just talk, go to, of course, art shows and things like that, but it's always, that person is, they're doing their art. They're right now showing their work. You can't really talk to them for too long. They got to still do their own thing. But that was the hardest thing for me, and I'm starting to try and find ways to start to, one, go out and start to meet artists, but also be able to talk to them too.
So if you could go back in time, and you could tell your younger self who was walking through the doors of this building for the first time some advice, what would you tell yourself?
Have fun with the new experiences. Learn from them. Enjoy them. They're going to teach you something, and you'll probably use that skill set later down the road. Listen. Listen.
Do you think you had trouble enjoying those experiences?
I did. At times I did, because I was one of those ones I was a self-taught artist, and so when you tell me, okay, here's now some core foundations, and it's not something I'm used to, yes, I was always having that problem of, I don't like that. I don't want to do it.
That's not the way I do it, right?
That's not what I do. But I learned both here and at CCS that you need to know the rules to break the rules.
So what are you currently working on?
Currently, I'm working on some more pieces with the series Headspace, specifically that are talking about um, things that are going on in my mind, or things that are happening in current events, and showing some art pieces that are focusing on things that are happening here and doing collages of those events, all into one actual composition.
Do you want to elaborate on events that are motivating you?
Ooh, so right now, there is of course, the Black Lives Matter movement, and old ones too, like the Flint water crisis. It still is something that is still being brought to my attention. Also, the new things that are happening in the government, some of the new rules, legislations, and laws, and some of the new characters that are coming into the government that are shaking it up a bit. So those guys I'm actually kind of wanting to get a little bit more about them. And of course, music. Some new artists that I've been listening to from different cultures, they're also being a focus in this headspace of mine as well.
Excellent. So any kind of advice before we start asking some questions you want to give to everyone, our audience?
Have fun. Whatever you guys are doing in life, whatever you're doing, have fun with it. You only get one life. Enjoy it. And if you have a challenge, face it. If it fails, it fails. Learn from it.
Ooh, so, dang, I was going to go there, but now I'm coming back to you. So talk about failure. Because to me, this is a big thing. I talk about failure a lot with students,
Ooh, yeah.
especially more so, I think, than I did maybe when you were a student.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's such an important part of the learning process, right? That if everything goes so smoothly, how are you prepared for anything? So you want to talk about failure a little bit?
I loved it. I liked failure for a bit. It was frustrating. I hated it. I didn't like it at first. But then I got to the point I actually enjoyed it because it taught me some things. When I first tried to do a big, huge composition piece, it failed horribly. It was not pretty. In fact, it's still downstairs in my basement. I refuse to look at it.
Is it a reminder?
It is. It is a reminder. But it was that moment of when I tried something new, it didn't work out. But because it didn't work out, I learned from those mistakes I had with it. And then the next time I had to do it again or something similar, I was already ready. I was like, okay, I know this doesn't work, but I know this works. So it was wonderful having those failures many a times, because then you learn from it. Okay, you get success, that's wonderful. But failure, that's when you have the opportunity to grow, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I'll agree with you. It's a good endorsement for that.
Yeah, right.
All right, so I'd like to open it up. Are there any questions from any of you? Yeah, here.
So I want to start by saying I love every single piece. We get free time during class, get to come around, look. How long do you think it took you to find your style?
So it took me to get into my style. Ooh. I think it took me when I finally was actually here at Mott, because what Mott did was it opened up different perspectives that I didn't even think about. I think that was when I realized what things worked for me and what didn't. And then from there, I started to incorporate color, because I was a very bright personality, very animated, and that was when kind of color started playing a big role in my art pieces. So I would say, yeah, when I was in college, I think this is the perfect time when you guys can learn really what you want to do.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Oh, I'm so sorry.
So, my question is you've always enjoyed art, right? So, when did it become a thing of I love art to wow, I can really do this as a profession? And is it more of a leap of faith, or is it like have this confidence about myself to the point where I know I can do this?
I think it's a mix of both. It's really a mix of both. You got to have a leap of faith, and also you got to be, and these might not be the best words, but you got to be cocky and arrogant about your work in a way. You have to know who you are. Because the moment that you realize who you are, you know what type of artist you are, you're very confident in who you are, that leap of faith, yeah, it's going to be a little scary, but you're going to enjoy the ride because of the fact you always will have what you love to do as your driving force.
And don't you think a little bit, too, that you have to be willing to put yourself out there, however uncomfortable it is for you, however hard it is, but that's part of it, because if you're not putting yourself out there, who's seeing your work, right?
I agree. Be ready for letdowns. Be ready for them. They're going to come. Take the opportunity while you are here in college, when you are learning from the professors, take this time, because they're going to be the ones who can also help you out through those potholes that you might come through. And they'll be able to kind of walk you through on how they may have actually had that same experience and how they got over it.
Awesome. Other questions? Yeah.
So do you have a day job?
Yes, I have a day job. I am also a mortgage. I work in lending. So I'm a closer for UWM's United Wholesale Mortgage in Pontiac, Michigan.
And when did you decide that you really had the chops to put you a step above?
So when I realized that, actually it was actually an experience that I had. I got to be in an exhibition, I'll say it was the Bombay Sapphire exhibition. There were about maybe 5,000 different artists all over the world who were competing in this particular competition. And of those 5,000, I made it to the semifinal of that competition. And there was only, I believe, maybe 20 artists in that room. And I realized that of those 5,000, I was one of the ones who were chosen, even for the semi-annual. From that point on, I realized that, oh, no, I can definitely do this. I can do this.
Can you tell me about your parents? Are they here?
They are here. They are here. My mother is sitting right here. She was the lady who asked that last question.
Please stand up. You have to take you. Yeah.
Yep, now you got to stand up. Yeah, so that's my mom. And my sister's also in the back. She slipped in. Uh-huh. But yes, my family, and yes, my Aunt Barb is here too. Mm-hmm. Yes, because you.
Oh, here.
How instrumental were your parents in you becoming an artist, and what kind of support did they provide for you?
So my parents were very much a driving force in my art. My mom was very aware of what I was capable of. She would always, in fact, have her friends, anybody, whenever I was around in someone's house, she'd say, just give her some paper, give her some pencils. Sometimes she would have people who would say, what does she want? What does she want? She said, just give her pencils. Give her pencils, please. I'm tired of her killing all of my pencils. They have no erasers. Please. That was one thing. But she was extremely supportive of it. And she would also, my mother is a graphic designer herself. So sometimes she would give another perspective to how I would set up, in fact, some of my art pieces. And she would kind of give me like, hey, you might want to move this over a little bit. It might be a little bit more of a better angle or for what you're trying to do. So they were very much, very big supporters for me.
Demand the legend, Ed
Yes.
Watkins.
Now, this is probably more of a statement than a question. Listening to you, instructors don't always get the opportunity to circle back around and watch a student grow or hear a student talk. But listening to you, what comes to mind is, wow, she was listening. She got it. She struggled, but she got it. Okay? And that's sometimes all we're trying to do. When you showed up in my class the first time, you had skills, but I was there to teach you how to creative think and problem solve, how to come up with ideas. And then that sparks the next thing, and then as you grow, you gain confidence, and you are where you are. So that's just my thoughts right now. Thanks.
That is 100% true all the way. I definitely listened to Mr. Watkins for many years. In fact, even after I was out of school, out of college, I would still reach out and ask for opinions. I'd ask for solutions. That's why I say it, and I'll say it many a times, rely on your instructors. Keep that connection, because no matter what, these guys really are your best assets. They have so much knowledge, and they are so willing to give it. Many people would fight to get some of the information you guys literally have at your fingertips. So I always encourage people, definitely listen to them. Yeah, they might be annoying. They might be annoying, but they are there to give their experiences. They are there to teach, and they are willing to give that information to you freely. Some people would have to pay to get it, but now you will, from this point on, you now have that door open to you guys. So I always encourage, use it.
And talking about your CCS instructors
Oh,
as being
please
annoying there.
stop.
I know you're not talking about us.
No, I'm definitely talking about you, Jim.
I just wanted to say I love your work. I mean, it is so colorful and dynamic, and I get the depth of feeling that you put into each piece, and I think it's wonderful. But my question is, you were talking about some of the exhibitions and things that you were part of. How did you hear about, get into some of these experiences?
Sometimes I would actually have fellow artists or friends who would know me, and they just send it to me. That would be some of the ways. Other ways would be websites. In fact, I believe I would Google art fair, art shows happening in Michigan internationally, and there would be websites that would have several different things going on, and I just keep them and bookmark them. And sometimes I'd even schedule myself to say, okay, here's a challenge, here's a goal for myself. I'm going to try and go into this one. What does it take to get into this one? Or if, for example, you guys know some artists and you go to the art shows, talk to them, ask them. Most of the time, artists are very willing to give the information on how they got into the show to you if you ask for it. Welcome.
Any other questions? Nick of time, right?
So you mentioned that there were other cultures of music that you listened to. Can you talk about how the viewpoints and the music and things that you have learned from different cultures also inspire and possibly influence your work?
Yes. So with different cultures, it's learning the history of their instruments. Like, for example, I believe Rooted Sound over here is all African instruments. Some of them my mom would call a didgeridoo. I did not know was a mibra. If I said it wrong, I'm sorry in advance. But I said it right. Oh, look, praise the Lord. And I would learn that actually there were artists, like musicians, who would use these instruments. And I didn't even know that was the origin of them. And when I started those type of pieces, it was same with Wildflower. Though it was inspired by probably maybe 2 or 3 different songs, one of them was actually a Korean song that came out, and it was also one of the inspirations. That's why in this particular piece, you might even see some Korean characters in it that spell out Wildflower. but it was learning these new history, learning about these new cultures and the world we live in. It was wonderful. It was a great experience, and hopefully I will, as people get to know me, I might even have some people who will reach out and say, hey, I want to tell my story. Here's some instruments I know of in my culture. So it's kind of a way of, again, like I said in the beginning, music being a great communicator for me as an artist.
Can you actually list some of the cultures and things that you? I'm a big fan, so I kind of follow your work. I've been following it for a long time. Can you like list some of the things that you watch, or some of the things that you like to kind of pick pieces off of and kind of put into your work?
Okay, so for me, I'll say K-dramas. K-dramas. I liked Turkish dramas. I liked telenovelas. I liked watching documentaries about British castles, or even about some movies, of course, you know. The first, if I say this wrong, The Woman King. I liked that story. And then also learning about like Black Panther, but specifically about the Dua Milaje and how that was an actual real African tribe that was in real life, learning that type of history. And of course, yes, I will say anime is also a big, big part of my artist life. In fact, one of my very first proud moments was being able to draw Malfina from Outlaw Star. That was a very big moment for me when I was first trying out. So anime was very big for me as well.
So you recently had an exhibit at the library, and you had a surprise because somebody that no one knew saw your work, called somebody in where?
In Los Angeles, California. I previously said I got a mentor. Mentor is actually Mr. Kenneth Gatewood. He is an international artist who has also been very much in the Beverly Hills scene, and he reached out to me and we talked, and the next time I called him and said, are you interested in having a mentee? He said, you're already it. And so from that point on, that became, he's been my mentor. He's been guiding me and walking me through how to really make a living off of being just a freelance artist, and also kind of having your eggs in many different places, and how to actually show your work in different perspectives, or how to be in a place and then still make more art in different ways as well.
Any other questions? So I'm going to ask this final one. Then, dream project. If you could do anything, what would it be?
Ooh, a dream project. Yeah, that would be one of them. I would probably say to work for Disney would be a big one, but I would actually like to work with Disney, but also work with fellow artists. Like to have incorporate with Disney and then go all over the world, because Disney has many different places, and be able to work with each one of the artists there and artists who aren't known, and be able to bring them in and to teach them everything I know and give it back out. That would be one of my biggest dreams, actually.
That's a great dream. That is outstanding. Carla, I cannot tell you how great it is to see who you are now, from the person who first walked through these doors many years ago to how you have just grown and become this phenomenal artist. I mean, you already had talent when you walked through the door, but just to see who you become has been amazing, and it has been our pleasure to have you here. at the gallery. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for doing this talk.
Thank you, thank you.
And thank everyone who joined us in the live stream. This is our last exhibition of this academic year, and we hope you will join us back here on May 19th when we have our annual student art show open at 6 p.m. that night. So it'll be right here in the VADC on Mott's main campus. So thank you again, Carla.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.